Okay.
One second.
Okay. Yeah?
Yeah.
The SAT represents an educational paradigm shift instead of testing acquired knowledge. The SAT proclaims success in intellectual ability, steal of 4. Ability paradigm has been meritocratic efficiency involves assumption that there is a core intellectual ability that can be measured, that scores can triage students. SAT was to be an instrument of meritocracy in this superheated competition. The score adds little info, test scores channels African Americans into lower grade education. We have set up 2 educational systems. They are separate, but unequal as a paradigm. It's a sham. Claims that the SAT is an objective scientific test, massive social and political rules to sort society into worthy and unworthy classes. 18, the idea that ability can be controlled by a problematic assumption and objective measurement. Test scores aren't a product of structural inequalities. Myth of meritocracy serves a dual purpose for capitalism. It denies structural issues, justifying existing inequalities. Issue like incarceration, wages, killing by police, sexual harassment, disparities in discipline rates of Black and Latino in schools. None of these is systemic. This is rampant in education. The current remedies for educational inequality pushed by neoliberal education reformers are grit and resilience testing built upon capital individual competition. The SAT inaccurately predicts success questions systematically advantage white students, and the predictive paradigm is a holdover from the eugenics movement focused on aptitude rather than subject mastery. Is covered for racial exclusion scores. 12. IQ eugenics for the law of the land. The SAT was supposed to measure intrinsic intellectual aptitude, not subject mastery. It did not work to predict rates of private sector crime because of the convenient way disguised selection, paying the bills, and calling for abolition of the test. Definitionally, the test cannot be a reformed aptitude test or designed to produce a bell curve in order to be standardized. 18. The test is testable past created by Brigham eugenicists who believe different races were biologically more intelligent. The SAT serves the same purpose to sort human population by giving high scores as valued and low scores as undeserving. The SAT built inequality into its DNA. The SAT is not very good at prediction. In 2016 study used the College Board's own data. They found the SAT inaccurately predicted 80,000 students. Test question selection is racially biased, self-reinforcing cycle of inequality. The SAT is color-based racism, officially neutral but empirically racialized, and sort of stratified establish a norm for performance while perfect sense directly from eugenics. This goes beyond education. The SAT is an attempt to dissect and predict human potential to sort society into our tenant roles. It's a dream of total control. Even 99. A system for ranking people of a ranking place in society. The clash between the promise of more opportunity and the reality that most people would be limited. A handful of colleges maintain a bread and butter monopoly over testing. The issues would soon be forgotten. ETS for going and moving on aptitude tests for achieving nuanced understanding. Just as the Manhattan Project had looked at the ETS would decode the mind. Intelligence testing people occupy a position of power which no intellectuals held since theocracy. This form of social control creates environmental degradation. Poverty bleeds into IRR. Impact is worldwide. Dolby 97. Assumptions and control suggest that interventions offer the possibility of managing international politics that will empower implicit in positivist epistemology, such that other approaches deserve to be taken more seriously. More important, global action around poverty and environmental degradation without a security framework. And inequality is the biggest source of preventable death. We must prioritize its reduction. Answer 17. The deadliest kind of violence is woven into American society. Exists when some groups have more access to resources. Structural violence is a product of inequality. We did find ourselves at war to urban Americans. No disaster area has been declared. Each year, more than 60,000 black people die prematurely because of inequality. We have the means to fix it. And meritocracy is the lifeblood of capitalism. It's an ideological structure. Crucial. Explain away the system's failings. Wolf 19. Capitalist economic system has major failures. If these were widely perceived, capitalism itself might vanish. The system produces interpretation of its failure that blame problems on other causes. One example is meritocracy. Merit ideology functions as a crucial defense mechanism of capitalism. Those offering no jobs can only blame themselves. The education system is important because capitalism's survival depends on them, and we must struggle to preserve the educational commons. Abandoning educational institution feeds neoliberal attacks on public life. The impact of extinction means 14. Exopedagogy creates a new location for education. These locations out of bounds at Empire 10. Exopedagogy tends to reproduce some of the same limitations. Absolute democracy underestimates the capacity of capitalism to self-revolutionize. The presence crippled by capital to enclose education are symptomatic of this. It substitutes politics for an eminent ontology. Escape to a place outside contradiction. Debilitating withdrawal from political engagement and maintain momentum toward commodification of all life on the planet. This sees the public spirit to the political right, new forms of existence. Ebuea, radical educational theory privileges escape elements of educational institutions that always exceed these mechanisms and remain partially autonomous. Build common educational institution. To be highly skeptical of protesting arguments. The testing industrial complex is waging a propaganda war to justify existing inequality. Hernandez, 18. A book published by scholars tied to the testing industry size up the urgent need to seek solutions beyond the ways college admissions are today. We need to pay attention to the deeper purposes and for whom tests exclude marginalized groups. Overwhelming research has shown these tests predict demographic characteristics. Efficiency can no longer be an excuse for a flawed system. The only result is the status quo of inequality. One common tool cannot equitably measure people afforded different chances. Those who have benefited feel they earn their position with listen and exclusion and plan. Colleges and universities in the United States ought not consider the scholastic aptitude test, SAT, and undergraduate admissions decisions. Standardized tests like the SAT are justified through the neoliberal appeal that there is no alternative. This discipline's education reform focus on small-scale projects that can't address structural inequalities. Rejecting the SAT is a radical act that can transform educational paradigms away from focus on ability. Bateman 18. The test contains exercises that provoke cognitive fatigue in students offended by racist and misogynistic content. The meta-analysis failed to account for the in the trenches perspective. People sort the students according to cultural capital. The SAT is part of imagined meritocracy. The problem comes down to the idea that we must test in the first place for higher ed assessment. Wonks working in the industry, it pays to keep evaluating the way we always have. Many educators offer nothing at all in college admissions and powerful signals to society about what is valued. Starting with admission decisions, an important place to to begin, not an endpoint. NCCC P16. Any healthy society depends on citizens concerned about the common good. College admission can play a key role, sending signals that influence millions. Exacerbate singular focus on achieving college admissions could generate positive changes in ethical commitments expressing test scores on sense of responsibility. We recommend alleviating excessive pressure for redefining achievement itself. Performance becomes not one theme, but the theme. These only address pieces of a complex problem. Changes need to accelerate. Our recommendations are one powerful place to begin. Now, the underview. They're wrong about bare plurals. Let's see. 11. Generics are statements such as dogs or mammals that express general claims. The generics do not involve quantifiers. Generics can be expressed using definite singulars, and plurals can refer to singular reference when the category total is unknown. Pattern 14. In a situation in which the speaker does not know how many children they address, he has the plurals fallacious. This shows that plural NPs do not always have to refer to a set of multiple individuals. They can refer to a single individual. Cases in which plurals can refer to singular reference tend to be the ones in which the speaker does not know the specific numerosity. Common usage proves that generic statements are proven true by subsets. Symbian 10. Generic statements require little evidence to be judged true. So, lorches have purple feathers, true even when only 10% had purple feathers. Mosquitoes carries the West Nile virus, yet only 1% are carriers. Only a minority of birds lay eggs, but birds lay eggs is uncontroversial. Needle T makes plans impossible. Ovarian 14. Needle T seems to be extremely difficult to meet with any plan. Narrow the breadth of topics, and standardized test refers only to the SAT or ACT. West Virginia University 18. Standardized test refers to the SAT, ACT. Yeah.
Okay. Is the ACT better than the SAT?
Yes.
Why?
There are a couple of reasons. First is that the SAT was created in order to measure predictive ability or future potential for knowledge.
What is the ACT created to measure?
Acquired knowledge.
What evidence says that?
That's just like what it is.
The ACT. Oh, I guess what's the difference between predictive knowledge and acquired knowledge?
Yeah. So predictive knowledge is it's biopolitical for a few reasons. The first is because.
And like, why is it political? Like, what is it?
Wait, say that
What
again.
is it?
What is it?
What is predictive knowledge?
Predictive ability is the idea that you can prescribe future value to certain people based on their test scores.
And the ACT doesn't do that.
No, because it's based on acquired knowledge.
What evidence substantiates that distinction?
Again, that's just like what it is.
I
The
disagree that
SAT
you can
is
just say that's what it is. I
No.
took both. I think they're pretty similar.
okay.
What evidence
No.
says there's a
There's-
distinction between the two, or like what's the difference in terms of the
So
questions?
many cards in the affirmative discuss the way that the SAT was created. It's literally called the Scholastic Aptitude Test. It's in order to measure
Well, that's not what
future
it's called
aptitude.
anymore. But
Well, they changed the name to like make it seem like that's not what it does anymore.
what is meritocratic efficiency?
Yeah, so meritocracy is kind of the idea that you have total control over your future, i.e. the way that you can work hard and somehow make a ton of money, that those things are always mediated by different structural
So how does the app get people to stop thinking that they can control their future and like do better?
Well, okay, that's just like not the argument. Our argument is that this meritocracy makes it, as per the one I see, or not the one I see, the SAT, like tricks people into thinking that it's a meritocratic system, which is what's bad.
How does it trick people into thinking it's a meritocratic system?
Well, because it's like based in eugenics, people study for the SAT. They think that if they do well, they'll be able to like. go
But
to
people
college and
don't
be
study for the
successful.
ACT and don't think
No,
they'll be
it's-
successful if they do well in the ACT.
It's a totally different thing. I can explain the distinctions if you want.
I would
Yeah.
love for you to explain
Okay,
the distinction
so
because I think you
The
have no
SAT,
evidence on this.
no, all of the evidence is about the way that the SAT was designed by a eugenicist in order to decode the human mind, in order to measure aptitude. The ACT was created in opposition to the SAT because of those reasons. Also, the ACT is just based on acquired knowledge. That's why there's a science section and things like that.
What's the difference? Okay, the science section is just reading comp, but what's the difference between acquired knowledge and predictive knowledge?
Predictive knowledge, again, attempts to sort people into their future value.
How does the ACT not do that? It's literally saying if you get a certain score, you get to go to a better college. How is
Okay,
that distinct from what
So the
does?
SAT has different like biases towards specific types of students, right? The ACT does not have questions that are designed in order to decode the human mind. That's literally the foundation of the SAT, not the ACT.
Your Hernandez evidence cites, quote, overwhelming research. What studies is that overwhelming research from?
I think there's a source in there. Let me just find it. I can find it for you. This card is big. I can't see it, but Asher pulled it out in the last round.
Okay, 3 then case. Oh wait, sorry, no. After the first off, it'll be the like T preamps in the app, and then the next two.
Got it.
Everyone good?
Yes.
Cool. First off, plans bad interpretation. The applicant that colleges and universities consider no standardized testing. The upward entailment test determines whether bare proposed existential less than 16 subtests are held. The existential interpretations upward entailment the same will always remain true if we replace the subject term with a more inclusive term. First, standardized test is existential because it passes the upward entailment test. The sentence colleges ought to consider the SAT and ACT passes the upward entailment test. It entails that colleges ought to consider standardized tests. Second, the resolution saying ought not means that colleges ought to consider no standardized test. For example, the sentence unicycles have wheels means that each unicycle has one wheel. The sentence unicycles do not have wheels means that each unicycle has no wheels. This is because the negation of an existential statement, i.e. it's not the case that some do is a universal statement, i.e. all of them don't vote neg first precision. Anything else justifies the app arbitrarily jettisoning words in the resolutions or when which checks neg ground in preparation would use the app no longer bounded by the resolution. Second, limits to ground things spec. Any of 26 composite tests including SAT, ACT, TOEFL, APs, and subject. SATs are recognized prep since there's marginal differences in the advantage, but it takes out at ground like AP college credits or TOEFL English skills, which are some of the few Nigerian examined aspect colleges. Third, topical versions also feature after the advantage or res up for new frames, mechanisms, colleges, or advantages. Reject the one errors case argument at least to absurd conclusions since neg could potentially be abused if the app is justified and flat out not being T, which leads to infinite abuse and justifying app use. Topicalities of voting issues should be evaluated through competing interpretations and tell us something that they do not have to prepare for. Reasonably is arbitrary and unpredictable, inviting a race to the bottom. No impact turns to TTs and procedural. In every argument says the app is bad, which also means it comes before one error theory. The app underview. We get new to in our answers to the underview. None of these cards have been impacted in the context of our specific T arguments. We can't adequately answer them until we know how they'll apply in the line. Leslie and Symbian are about generic pair pools, but standardized test is existential, so they don't apply. Patent evidence doesn't apply because we know that there are many types of standardized tests, and it doesn't assume ought not in the resolution. Our term doesn't make plans impossible. They can still specify colleges, which is the best middle ground because it still allows generics to all tests to apply. Also, no impact in making plans impossible. Big apps are good because they force research and ensure debates about core controversies, and their evidence has no warrant. The West Virginia evidence standardized tests are any test with instructions for administration for a PhD, semi-test standardized tests for public from reference. Human intelligence tests which specific instruction for administration. They include SAT, ACT, PSAT, and AP Kaplan. The exams AP, there are 37 different standardized single subject AP exams, IB, PSAT, SAT. Next one. Counterplay text, the 50 states ought to adopt the universal requirement that every high school student take a standardized college admission test free of charge during school hours. Require high schools to administer universal mandatory practice exams in preparation for such tests solves inequality. While 19 SAT, ACT for all the universal requirement every student take a test free of charge mandatory practice will mitigate differences. In study find that students taking practice has increased towards the absence of other activities to universal testing identified candidates and disadvantaged backgrounds and continue to financial programs apply to schools. And otherwise, it solves better empirics to NARSI 18 and dozen states ACT or SATs given school for sitting for tests. Required students can opt out because of low expectations. Results of this policy that share students taking these numbers 54% and 90% were living students when graduate 4-year college at Academy, Illinois, Colorado, taking these tests, volunteering, intelligence, advantage, useful, go detected. Next off, counterplan text, the DNC should announce that they are not going to nominate a candidate for the 2020 election because Trump has been the greatest president since Abraham Lincoln. Trump loses 2020, but it's close ended 9-3 Biden, Warren Sanders, Harris, all lead Trump in 2020 matches. Only 2 of 11 incumbents have passed years behind. At this point, we don't know if these polls will hold Trump at time. Education reform is a key issue for swing voters. Plan removes the incentive to vote in 2020. Harris 6-3 Democrats were transited with focus on high stakes testing. Education may be more important than ever. 2020 elections have to be on too important for politicians to ignore education to attract support various constituencies. Education Swiss Army knife, but policy and politics a major issue for voters. 2020 determines U.S. participation in the Paris Agreement, key to avoid extinction from warming, Schlinger 17 to straw from Paris removes the U.S. from its international efforts to reduce emissions, avoid time to rest, and improve liability of female life voters, Trump will allow structure to take 40 directly through real question of whether countries, states, and Paris may decide voters for 2020 that U.S. participation over avoiding dangerous climate change is further away the case. Overview. First, metrics for evaluation are inevitable. Colleges won't just decide to admit students randomly. All their criticism of the SATs and illiberal to them. Most futuristic mindsets miss the boat and misdiagnose the root cause. SAT is not the linchpin of the predictive ability paradigm. It's a small drop in the bucket. 2 slew of all colleges. Our entire childhood and the entire K-12 system is created for futuristic thinking. We're brainwashed with propaganda starting in elementary school about how our worth their children directly tied to our grades, what college we get into, which jobs we get, etc. The acronym the SAT is the root cause of the problems, like saying that I'll dismantle the government if I stop paying taxes. 3 no spillover. These wealthy families with entrenched interests will increase their emphasis on money investments on things like extracurriculars or summer internships and get rid of the SAT, which means the app just shifts futuristic thinking, predictive value in a sense to other admissions criteria. 4 GPA alone is uniquely worse than GPA and SAT. A GPA alone means there's no meaningful quantitative check against rate inflation, especially in private schools. B GPA alone turns to predictive value stuff because it increases the emphasis on a quantitative number that people then obsess about for 4 years. The movement stuff, first, the status quo also evidence says that activism is emerging now and the opt-out movement is succeeding. Students don't show up to take tests. Movements are galvanized irrespective of state-driven policy. Second, no spillover. They don't eliminate other tests, and their evidence concedes they're inevitable. It could Brian 15 while verification for 1 3 something resembling national assessment of education products tests used for diagnostic purposes, school level version NEP, which public health. We need to know about students' strong assessment of student and systemic outcomes. 3, no alternative standardized testing. Some data is better than other. Evidence use a slew of all causes. Brian, 15 said data better than no data. Other factors more important. Have a teacher buy-in, avoiding changes, and too many things quickly. For evaluation, time to check progress. Their epistemology, Hernandez evidence. 1, force them to read evidence indicting our specific authors. Otherwise, you have no way of knowing that our studies are flawed. 2, no you. Hernandez is a PhD candidate writing for the Huffington Freaking Post. Some 20-something-year-old doesn't have the empirical basis to claim that every study ever is wrong. 3, zero part of our argument is that the studies are universally flawed. She just doesn't like one specific book, which is measuring success book. None of our cards come from that book. 4, guess what? She also cites studies from the same industry experts. Hernandez, 18 new study from the National Association for College Admission Counseling, provides evidence test off from policies, help colleges. The whole article uses research. Hernandez, 18 research indicates holistic review may be better. They also don't know what studies their evidence is citing in CX, which means you should refer our specific evidence to their broad claims. The terms proper. Stats go neg. Overall consensus tests have a negligible impact on diversity. Consult PhD inside PhD 19 research demonstrates that testing offers has been enrolling increasingly diverse student bodies in the same as true schools that require testing. We have assembled 110 colleges with a total of 143,000 students. Central class enrolled students near the applicant pool. Test scores should have an important role difference in skill investment in development of the course of many years cannot be overcome quickly. Standardized testing can't fix systemic factors that make education unequal. Abolition just makes the process more subjective, which turns the case melter. 18 you should cause to go test all about anything. What if the ACT and ACT were abolished? The rest of the system would that be fair? No longer punish disadvantaged students. No idea. Even more subjective process to produce equity and systemic level. Socioeconomic factors on the aspects of admissions that limiting standardized testing would do little when people call for abolition standardized testing, whether they actually thought through the consequences on a practical level. And tests are the best possible determiner. Elites hate them and desperately try to avoid them precisely because they're for freedom. 19 is not true that parents outside other people in test prep. There's not a clear causal relationship between income and test scores. There's no evidence expects a test prep gets better results and free also at SAT interchangeable with IQ cognitive abilities highly variable. Never into the portion select test prep for practice question from old times middle expensive books for decades. Common category free resources and 60% utilize free resources. And no evidence that expensive materials are achieving yield better results scores with predictions or too low to get in the league college median. Switching the bottom half of Ole Miss if rich people can just spend their way to higher test scores. They wouldn't be sending hundreds of thousands to ride their way in. Holistic assessments are stacked in favor of elites. For 18 holistic methods of holistic methods valuing students for greater emphasis on student activities, essays, and letters for direct affluent parents have greater ability to provide for opportunities for actually for activities more likely to be a star value player person or affluent when college essays are easily improved the coaching. Now, test scores as an test service the only lower against rate inflation phenomena. It's concentrated to top wider, more affluent schools, private schools seeing far more greater inflation, minority poor public schools, and private schools grades are inflated 3 times per year. Public private schools have financial incentives to please parents, and colleges have perverse incentives to create and worsen inequality. That's a huge all-cause melter. 18 colleges have a bottom line to consider all but the wealthy don't need to work in the outright financial full pay students need to take steps for that. One way is early to applicants to be set academically, which requires stronger training. Less privileged applicants are less likely to have privileged academic high school in their history, sending students to college for guidance counselors actively lobby for average circulation, leading to college admission for content. One of the scandalous aspects of the admissions process, colleges barely manage applications are where they get 30,000 more options only when they take short make snap judgment biases and heavily creep.
Okay. Is everyone ready? Status of the counterpoints.
Additional.
Okay, let's talk about the politics dissent first. Why is education reform a crucial part of the Democratic platform?
Our evidence indicates that that's sort of been something that they've focused on and has been a crucial thing that voters care about in the context of
in
2020.
every single Democratic debate so far, they've been talking about immigration.
No, it's saying
healthcare.
Historically that's something that they've been focused on, but since they become more disenchanted, it's something that Republicans and Trump can capitalize on.
Why? Why is that true?
Because Democrats have not been focusing as much on education reform, but Dem voters care a lot about education reform. Trump taking credit for the act would make him look really good to these
why
voters
does
who care
Trump
about
take
education
credit
reform.
for the act?
Trump takes
how?
credit for everything.
Okay, but the resolution is about colleges and
Yeah, he'd be
universities.
like,
How?
He'd be like, I told the colleges to do that. I was responsible for this.
And you think
I'm the
Democrats are
president when this
stupid
is
enough
happening.
to believe that?
I mean, I think a lot of Democrats voted for Trump in 2016, so at least a sufficient amount are, and
Okay,
not that far ahead that
that
few-
is interesting.
sufficient
What
amount of votes could change the election as
what
per
does the,
unique evidence.
don't nominate a Democratic candidate counterpoint do?
It means that Democrats lose the election.
And your dissent is about Democrats winning the election. What is the net benefit?
There's no net benefit.
Okay, interesting. Let's go to the topicality shell. What is the upward entailment test?
Sure, so upward entailment is when you determine whether or not a sentence still remains true if you replace the term with a more inclusive term. So for example, if I'm like, colleges ought to consider the SAT, that proves the broader statement that colleges ought to consider standardized tests, which means that it's existential, because it entails the broader statement.
Wait, why is that true? I just
So like if I'm
fundamentally don't understand that.
like red beans are on this table, that entails the larger statement that beans are on this table, which means it's existential. These you can show are true by only showing that some of it is the case.
Wait, but if I'm like, I want green tea flavored Pocky, that doesn't
That's
mean
not
I
a
want
plural.
all types of Pocky.
That's not a plural,
Why not?
because it doesn't have an S at the end.
Well, there's no S at the end of standardized testing.
Well, the resolution says standardized tests.
Okay. What is the like implication of the ought not stuff? Like, why does that prove your interpretation is true?
Because a negative existential is universal, so saying no, like saying not or no in front of a sentence that means some means none. So if I'm like, unicycles don't have wheels, that means that no unicycles don't have any wheels, or unicycles don't have any wheels.
Okay.
If I say colleges and universities ought not consider standardized tests, it means colleges and universities ought not consider any standardized tests.
Okay. 150 then? I sent it. The order is going to be the case, at the Nebel stuff, I guess, starting on their shell and then back to the underview, and then the off, the rest off in the order. Everyone ready? The eugenics-based SAT perpetuates a myth of meritocracy, cements inequality through structural biases that solidify neoliberal control, spills over around the globe, makes extinction and injustice inevitable. They say there's no impact of bias questions. Yes, students experience psychological effects even if they aren't aware. That's the pavement evidence. None of their impacts apply. Ethical blackmail puts poor communities to the back burner, prioritizing them as keen on unique biopolitical control makes all of these impacts inevitable. That's Adobe evidence now. All of their offense, the Kunsel evidence, and the shift arguments, they're not responsive. It doesn't disprove that attempting to hack the mind through aptitude tests is a form of biopolitical control, which is bad in schools. Weight all things equally. Just remove one tool we say is bad. Nothing has a disproportionate impact. Regional representatives know when GPA is inflated as well as what extracurriculars are available in specific communities and account for a shift is good. SAT is uniquely bad because of predictive ability that no other test has because of its history. It attempts to measure future potential, which is a nebulous concept that cements neoliberalism. That's steal. This also isn't offensive. Only says other things can't be bad. If we win tests are bad, it's charter for the F. Now they say legacies, ED, etc. This is inevitable. It doesn't mean the SAT is bad. It still causes violence. They say all causes to futurism. No, the SAT is a tool of sorting, not a futurity bad argument. And they say movement's good. This is not our argument. Durable fiat all obviously means the plan passes. They say that some data is better than none. Yes, there is obviously other forms of data now than Nebel team. They're wrong about bipolar. Generics can be expressed using singulars when you don't know the quantity. How are the kids could mean one kid? That's the Leslie evidence. Pattern is our counterinterp. Pattern is our counterinterp. What is considered a there is no consensus over what is considered a standardized test when you don't know the exact number. Plurals can refer to singulars, which means the SAT is topical. Symbiont proves subsets can't disprove generic statements. If I say mosquitoes carry disease, it doesn't mean all do, but it's still a true statement. Plans are good. Nebel makes them impossible. This topic sucks. No one wants to debate it, and some variation is key to keep people engaged in debate, which answers all of their broad plans. Good arguments. Semantics focus is bad. First is floor, not a ceiling. Firm is intended ground, not definitional excellence. Jurisdiction is nonsense. Judges vote for non-T. Ask all the time. There's no stasis. Point offense. You should go with your gut here. No team reads the resolution. Thinks about existential plurals, which proves that their grammarian interpretation is exclusionary and arbitrary. We should go with common understanding first. They also bite our critique. They appeal to strict technical grammar. Is the same as standardized tests that test proper English, which just recreates oppression by political plural based on sorting, which is a performative impact turn. And a reason why they should lose. We should get impact turns because we should be able to crossify the one you see. Anything else moves to one you see. We already have a really strong time to do this. Also avoids critical discussions. Key to education. Generics check limits and you should reject competing interpretation. They encourage the negative to shift the goalposts with arbitrary interpretation, causing subs and crowd good is good enough use sufficiently framing to evaluate T offense and negative proof they have no ground, not just that they don't know the ground that they want now. The counterplay. Conditionalities voting issue, reciprocity, X and no cost options, advocacy's tips, strategic balance too far on their favorite strategy, advocacy's affect the way we debate other issues. We have to make choices of many arguments and account for each role, counterinterpret display with a condition that they can give that reason only defense. We can strategically stick them with offense on the net benefit. Condo comes before topicality because it's related to the way we engage in the debate. In the round, they obviously had substance that they can go for, which proves that Nebel isn't the end all be all. Now the Trump counterplan permutation do both. I'm not sure if it's a joke. They haven't read any framing evidence by political control. Obviously comes first. Now the politics is that education is not a core promise. Immigration and healthcare are way more important. There's a reason they haven't talked about it in debates. Impact framing done with the cases. The reason our impacts on first and Trump wins by a landslide. Now 2020 will determine by the economy, not the F1 Shepherd. 320 if the election were held today, he'd run to a second term in a huge landslide according to multiple economic models with strong track records. Trump looks surprisingly the economy. So it is so damn strong right now. Even if I have mediocre but not great economy that has a Trump victory but not triple margin. Trump winning by a blowout of 294 electoral votes. Trump wins in space. Independence won continuity. Hansen 320 gets even greater as Trump defeated Clinton. Trump and now has a record not just promises. Student independence will see success since 2017. If things stay about the same, Trump will win with enough swing states. Now the next counterplan, solvency deficit. Practice doesn't resolve the bell curve of racial disparity and question selection keeps meritocracy intact. They literally attempt to perfect the sorting system, which is form a neoliberal recovery logic. You should prefer abolition. SAT for all doesn't solve equality. Trades off with class time instruction. Green 16 juniors took the SAT during regular school. Our students now have one more required standardized test that it should have first admitted for minority students, make them feel like failures. How does it also take time away from something else? How does giving a test work help with the results of the SAT already strongly correlated with the income by zip code, taking away more time from class activities that lead towards grade and one GPA diverting time to take the SAT can only have a negative impact on student access, college, and success once they rep. Also, it can't account for students who need extra time because it's taken during class.
4 minutes. Reasons to reject the team were the impact turning conditionality and others.
Nope.
Okay. T, the elections disad, or wait, where did you have conditionality? Which counterplan? Okay. The counterplan that did have conditionality, whichever one that is, the one that did have conditionality, then the case. Okay.
T, the one without condo, the one with condo.
I'm T, then I'm gonna kick the counterplans, then I'm gonna do condo. In the case. Okay. Everyone ready? Okay. Their impact turn isn't a voting issue, it's just a reason to reject the topicality argument. They know more for why it's an independent reason to reject the team. You should draw a line from the one and the two, and your understanding of why it's a voting issue changes from one of the two words in your argument. You should strike it off the flow. Just saying that we're biopolitical isn't a reason to reject the team. It also begs the question of the case debate, and it's just a reason to reject the T-shot, which solves all their offense. That's key to sub education, so every round doesn't end on cheap shots that don't have more, and allows us to actually learn about the topic, which is the impact of all their arguments. The counterplans can see the permutations on both of them. They were conditional, not going for either of them to permutations just to test the competition. Conditionality, it's good. One was logical rule, and the next prove the app is bad. The app should prove their optimal. Every counterplan establishes an opportunity cost of plan. Any limit on that is arbitrary. Also proves you should judge taking scope is better than the counterplan. 2 key to negative flex. They set the terms of being in the plan better. That's multiple options. Ensures negatives and auto lose after the 1 AR. 3 fosters active source force. The app defend every component of the plan. Allows rigorous testing. Allows better information processing by enabling discussion on a litany of issues. 4 is most role plus makers attack the bill from different angles to know, but then it's also one person. They can amend and change position to find the best option. 5 using double speed, card quality, coaching, or talking balances all make debate harder. They've been proving structurally speed debate. Any more reciprocity user Neville. App gets 3 speeches, Nick gets 2, and only the app has the burden of inherency, which proves they need to win. You need to be 6 reasonability, cross-apply from competing interpretation, or cross-apply from top-cal competing interpretations to substitute credit by letting minor infractions and debate don't fit app. We didn't make debate impossible. It was only 2 conditional counterplans in quarters of Loyola. Are you kidding me? If you can't answer that, you don't deserve to be in semifinals. It's also uniquely justified when they read a plan that specified a type of test piece. It means we need increased negative flexibility. The next error negative on 1 error 3, they get 2 speeches in a 7-6 time finish, which means they have the ability to reframe all of our offense. We don't get an opportunity to do argument, resolution, or comparison in the last speech because we don't have a 3 AR or 3 and R. So unless you're 100% certain after the debate that they've definitively won, you should vote negative. Last, dispo links to all of their offense. It's unclear exactly what it means to what constitutes defense, i.e. reading a solvency takeout on the internal link of the counterplan solvency defense. Is it solvency as a defense attack? That doesn't make any sense. Means their inter just leads to more confusion and can't set a stable norm for debates. It also links to all of their offense because the app is inevitably going to have to make a permutation, especially on counterplans like these, or the neg will just add planks like end poverty that force you have to make a permutation, which proves it links to all their offense. Improves reasonability. The case. Framing. Vote for the team that produces the best consequences. Their framing arguments are all self-serving and make no sense. They don't get to weigh the sum total of biopolitical control, only the unique amount they solve, which is basically nothing considering they've conceded all of our all-cause and metrics for evaluation are inevitable. Colleges won't just decide to admit students randomly. They will use other quantitative metrics like the GPA, extracurriculars, etc., all of which promote futuristic mindsets and promote the mindset that you should be trying to succeed, you should be trying to be productive within the capitalist system, which is what all of their biopolitical control arguments are about, which proves they're just a drop in the bucket. They may have evidence that talks about predictability, but that's the genetic fallacy. Even if like the SAT came from the ideas of eugenics, that doesn't mean that's necessarily what it has to be about. That doesn't mean what it necessarily has to be about today, and doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad thing. And if we win, it's comparatively better than other alternatives in terms of biopolitical control and direct consequences on minority communities. That's a reason why you should vote negative. Now the overview of the deterrence. Imagine you're an admissions officer at Berkeley and you have 100,000 applications to sort through. Some universal metric is required to objectively determine the best fit for your institution, and standardized tests are the most important one. Couple framing issues. 1, we don't have to win. Standardized tests are perfect, but they're the best way of remedying inevitable inequalities. 2, the one here said a lot, or 2, at the end of this debate, right, you should ask yourself what the terminal impact of the app is. They cannot do anything about capitalism at large. All their evidence is written in the context of what SAT exams are analogous to, but they've not drawn an internal link between the wording of questions and mass inequality. If I would concrete impact, you should be very comfortable with voting negative. Colleges are witnessing an upwards trend towards more diverse classes. 1 and C console and second look at 110 colleges and over 100,000 students and found that both test optional and mandatory schools saw a positive increase in diversity. They have zero answer to this. In this disproves all of their try or die arguments because it proves diversity and decreases in biopolitical control are occurring in the status quo, which flips try or die because it means there's only a risk that the app makes it worse. It means even if there's only a small risk of returns, you should feel comfortable voting negative. The app decimates any shot of equity in the application process. First, GPA research over the course of the past few decades across millions of students found that grade inflation has occurred in upper class of private schools, whereas the average GPA has hardly budged in lower income public schools. Teachers in affluent districts have parental pressure to give kids higher grades, and wealthier schools offer more challenging weighted courses. Private schools have adopted new grading methods to artificially elevate the quality of their students. 1C Melter cites Anderberg and Kincaid, which grade on numeric skills. Tests are better and more objective than grades since subjective factors like extra credit and parents lobbying for test retakes heavily influence their reliability. Private schools would, this also is uniquely often because private schools would increase GPA inflation in a world in which GPA is the new #1 metric. These GPA would be more important than SATs, which means the app directly leads to a linear increase in the amount of focus on the GPA and grade inflation, which worsens it. Second is extracurriculars. Holistic review leads to an over-reliance on extracurriculars in the application process, which is infinitely worse. Sports like club soccer require hefty membership fees, and even debate requires traveling and coaching extraordinary expenses that lower-income kids can't afford. Third, essays, personal statements, and supplication questions all go through review of private schools since they've dedicated college counselors, infinite revision time for rich white kids to perfect their writing. The alignment and like their ethical blackmail stuff, that's what they are, because they're just framing like, oh, we just have to win that the SAT is a little bit bad, which inevitably is just used to justify sort of small reforms that don't do anything but make things worse for minority communities, which proves that they're arbitrary and consequential, and the only frame that you can evaluate, even if they're used for sorting. We've won that those sort of sorting stuff is inevitable. Regional directors don't solve the way in which regional counselors or admissions officers know the differences between schools and whether or not their grading inflation is by cross-referencing it with SAT. Because if one school district has much better grades than another school district, but they have the exact same SAT scores, they know that one school district is inflating the grades, whereas the other district isn't. Without SAT scores, there's no cross-referencing to be able to determine that, which means we're crucial interlinked to context, and this proves all of our turns argument, because there would be no way for those regional reps to be able to know which schools are not inflating. Also, they obviously can't know what every single community has access to extracurricular opportunities, which proves all of our turns still apply. It's not try or die that was answered above. Legacies might be inevitable, but that proves that there are all causes to their internal link, and they aren't able to resolve a sufficient amount of their impact. Look, the one arrow was super blippy on the case. You should draw a line from the one to the two arrow. We have fantastic evidence that isolates specific comparatively why the alternatives that they shift to are worse. Their framing arguments are self-serving and arbitrary. They increase biopolitical control, and they definitely do not solve it.
Just the case. Is everyone ready? They've conceded that biopolitics controls the internal link to all of their impacts and makes them inevitable. The Dolby evidence is really good on this question. This analysis was done on the dissent, but it proved it's not a framing argument or an attempt to exclude their offense, but it does prove that all of their impacts are inevitable in a world where we don't have some sort of a break from biopolitics. If we are winning that the SAT upholds some form of biopolitical sorting, then you must vote affirmative. Otherwise, all of their impacts are inevitable, and inequality is inevitable. This just proves tried for the affirmative, but shift is not offense. This is inherently a conservative argument that says we shouldn't make worthwhile changes to unethical policy because other bad policies might still exist. They have no reason why any shift would be categorically worse than the exclusion that exists in the status quo. There's only a risk that a plan would make education better, even if other metrics exist. Well, line by line, their arguments now, they say that SAT is not based on eugenics. Now, yes, it is baked into the DNA of the SAT because it is based on predictive ability and a bell curve. Obviously, this bell curve looks at the people in the middle of the bell curve, which is the majority of people, i.e. upper class white people, which excludes people based on questions and means that they can't catch up in scores. They say that there are too many applications and you need a universal metric. Yeah, we already answered this. We said that shift is good. There are still APs, ACT, etc. But our argument is that the SAT is distinctly bad, which means that there is still some data, but that data won't be biased. Specific examples of the SAT being biased are certain questions about scientists. Scientists only refer to them as male scientists, which causes a psychological reaction from women because the questions are androcentric. For example, there used to be an analogy about polo versus regatta, which obviously inner city kids don't know, and the white grammar argument obviously applies from the TOEFL. It proves specific examples on why the SAT is bad, but that doesn't mean that other metrics that doesn't mean that we can't shift to other metrics which would be marginally better, which would definitely be better than the SAT. They say GPA and inflation. They have the regional officers argument still answers this. There are experts on the specific regions of schools. There are tons of them. They visit the specific schools and they know specific things about that school and that region. Obviously, the extracurricular bias argument doesn't apply. They wouldn't pick someone who's the sailing captain over someone who lives in the middle of America just because they can't sail because there's no water near them. That makes no sense. They understand structural disparities for extracurriculars. They say sorting is inevitable. Yes, even if this is true, we should still try to reduce it because it creates violence. Otherwise, all of their impacts are inevitable. This also takes out all of the all cause arguments. If there is any form of sorting that recreates inequality, it makes all of their impacts inevitable. If there is any doubt in your mind, or if you think that the SAT is biased in any sort of way, you should vote affirmative because we can restrain it. Obviously, we're winning that a shift to other things is better than the SAT because it's not rooted in eugenics, one, and based on predictive aptitude, which causes biopolitical sorting, which recreates all their impacts.
Good.